it is probably one of the most important roles is to have a deputy district attorney or a prosecutor represent two things at a parole hearing. One, and really this is really the core function of being a DA, is we are there to represent crime victims. When somebody becomes the unfortunate victim of a crime, the prosecutor is supposed to be their voice, and they're supposed to stand up for them. They're supposed to advocate for crime victims. And so the parole process, it's a critical part of the system that we have a prosecutor there to represent and to advocate on behalf of crime victims. The second part of that is that we are there not only to advocate for crime victims, but we're also there to advocate for the public. Because inmates, people that are convicted of violent crimes and that potentially are going to be released from prison, they could be dangerous and they could really jeopardize the public safety of our community. Crime victims have a constitutional right under what we call Marsy's Law, and they have a right to be present at parole hearings. They have a right to have a voice. And the penal code really says that the prosecutor is supposed to be the sole representative of the people at a parole hearing. And so it's unfortunate, but there's at least one county in the state that has chosen not to send prosecutors anymore to parole hearings. And that's, as long as I'm the DA of this county, that's never going to happen here, because we have an obligation, not just to people like Tammy Johnson and other crime victims, but to our community at large, to make sure that they are safe.
In 1996, my kids told me that they wanted to, come out and have a meeting with me, my older kids. And they all came to the house, and Janae was there, Robert, Jason, Anita, and Johnny, and they told me what Ramel did. And it's beyond devastating to hear something like that. And I really can't even remember what was said, because it's like a blur to me. So that's the first time I found out, and I didn't know what to do about it, So I knew the only thing I could do is to call the police on him, And I called the police. They came to the house and they interviewed me and Janae and got all the information. And after that, the boss started going for the case.
I don't want to go into great detail. I just think it's important that people understand that your daughter suffered years of sexual abuse by your brother, her uncle. Very, very significant. Went on for a long period of time. Involved a lot of threats and violence and a variety of different things that really devastated your daughter. He was found guilty, and the parents were also found guilty. And Ramel White was sentenced to 242 years in prison. And then last summer, we got notified that Ramel White had been granted a youthful offender parole date. We were very aggressive in trying to get that decision changed because it was just wrong. And fortunately, the governor reversed that decision, which then meant he would go back to another parole hearing, and then he'd have to make his pitch again. And so we did that hearing, about 2 months ago, Tammy? Is that about right?
Yeah, it was like 2 months ago, and it was really devastating to go through, because I heard some stuff that I didn't even know. And just the whole experience, even to think that he might be able to get out after what he did, and the whole society would really be at risk. It would be so many more victims. I can't even imagine how it would have been if we didn't have you guys, like Anne-Marie. I shudder to think, because I could barely, from going through everything, it's hard, when you're the mom, even though you want to be strong, and I tried to be strong. It's hard because the whole situation
Tammy is one of thousands of victims, unfortunately, in our system. And this office, I'm so proud of, because we do this job because we have two things in mind: one, protecting victims, and two, protecting the public. The role of the prosecutor doesn't end with sentencing. It ends when the case is final and over, and that ultimately the parole decision, and maybe it gets changed later on, but we're always going to be there, Tammy. We're always going to be there.